Now, usually for these podcasts, I always start it with a quirky intro, and I also play a photo slideshow that goes through the discussion I'll be talking about for that podcast. But for a topic like this, doing something like that feels extremely distasteful. Even making a video about this can feel a bit distasteful. But my purpose of this channel is always to discuss events in the world of professional wrestling, and despite how awful these circumstances are, what happened tonight is probably going to be the most talked about occurrence in the world of professional wrestling, probably for the remainder of this weekend. And usually, and for wrestling fans or WWE fans, this is not the first time that we've had to deal with something like this. It usually does come around at this time of year. Once I was seeing the announcements of a lot of the departures on social media, it reminded me that, oh yeah, it did seem to be around at the SmackDown after WrestleMania, or maybe the week after Mania, where some cuts were starting to happen. And it seems that today, that is when more cuts in WWE started to happen. And there were cuts on the talent side from both the developmental and main roster side. And I'm going to talk through all of them. And I will warn now, with quite a few of the developmental talents, I am not as aware of their professional wrestling careers, or at least some of them. So if I don't dive too deep with the developmental talents, it's mainly due to me not being as knowledgeable about their work, and I don't want to just spew a bunch of nonsense. And the developmental talents that were let go from either NXT or maybe some appeared on LFG. I don't watch that show a ton, so I don't know for sure. But the developmental side, the departed talents were Andre Chase, Chris Island, Luca Crisafino, who was in the D'Angelo family, Serena Linton, Trill London, Tyra May Steele, and the tag team High Rise members Tyson and Tariq. Now the only ones from this side who I'm much more aware of is mainly in particular Andre Chase, because of his work with the Chase U faction. And while I'm not an avid watcher of NXT, or at least over the past couple of years I haven't watched as actively, but I would always want to check out the Chase U segments, because I always thought those were insanely entertaining. And especially when it came to Andre Chase, especially with his persona in NXT, he can really work in the ring. And whenever he pulled out some really cool spots, it was kind of like NXT's version of an Orange Cassidy ring spot. And it was pretty delightful. And he always got some really fun spots in the ring. And I think if they wanted to bring Chase U to the main roster, they really could have use that to develop some other younger talent. While it may not have gotten Andre Chase a singles title or anything, it would have gotten him some really good TV time, and I think he would have been very beneficial for it. And Luca Crisafino, I mentioned, I knew from the D'Angelo family, but I didn't, obviously I don't remember, I'm not as fond of his work, not fond is the wrong word, not as familiar with his work as I am with other members of that faction, as opposed to a Tony D'Angelo or Stax. And when it comes to and I did see a little bit of High Rise as well, but not a ton. But they are insanely talented, so I really hope that they can get a contract, maybe in either TNA or AEW or any other wrestling promotion sometime soon, because they are extremely talented, and this situation is an awful occurrence for everybody. And like I mentioned before, I am not as aware of a lot of the developmental talent's careers, so that's why I won't be diving into their careers as much. But when it comes to all of the main roster talents that have been let go, I have been very aware of their careers, whether it's their work in WWE or their work on the independent scene or other smaller promotions like TNA. And all of these are extremely heartbreaking, and I will get into why I think all of these are awful in their own way, and for some maybe also discuss ways that WWE did not utilize them enough, and ways that they could have used them a lot better, and if they had done that, we might not be getting the circumstance of a lot of these talents being let go. And the main roster talents that had departed are Alba Fyre, Aleister Black, and Zelina, Apollo Crews, Kairi Sane, both members of Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley, and Chris Sabin, Santos Escobar, Zoey Stark, and all members of the Wyatt Sicks, being Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy, Rowan, Nikki Cross, Dexter Lumis, and Joe Gacy. All of these are extremely heartbreaking. Extremely heartbreaking. And not only heartbreaking, quite a few of them are shocking, because with a few, it seemed like there were maybe some storylines that were starting to get into development, and it was seeming like the future was maybe not exactly the brightest in the world, but they still had some focus on TV and enough to not have them be let go in a round of talent cuts. And I'll start with Alba Fyre, and I have so much pain for Alba Fyre in this situation, because last year her tag team partner Isla Dawn was released, and I could only imagine in that circumstance, if your tag team partner is let go, it can develop so much fear for your job as well, because if they let your tag team partner go, where does that really leave you? What do they really have planned for you? What can really happen? And she was doing some really great work in the Secret Service, being a manager for Chelsea Green alongside Piper Niven. And I think because Alba Fyre was in this round of cuts, that led to people also posting on social media that Chelsea Green also got released. And that's really fucked up to do stuff like that, because it's not something to just randomly spew nonsense about, because these are people's jobs that we're talking about here, and it's nothing to fuck around with. And there already have been some other situations with these departures today that might have gone outside the ethical route when it comes to some wrestling journalists, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So posting false information like that is just disgusting, because this is a very serious matter. And I feel horrible for Alba Fyre, and I hope that she can get some instant work soon. And I know that with the developmental talents, I believe their non-compete clauses last for 30 days, whereas opposed to the main roster talents, those non-compete clauses last for 90 days still, I believe. And when it comes to Aleister Black and Zelina, I might be the most shocked with those two out of the entire list of talent that have been let go. It could be Kairi Sane is also up there. I'm shocked with all of them, but Aleister Black and Zelina are especially shocking, because Aleister Black had recently been signed back with WWE, I believe last year. If it was 2 years ago, I don't think it was. It was not 2 years ago. He signed back with WWE, I believe, after WrestleMania 41 last year. And I was really hoping that we could get some great work from him in this return to WWE, because I am such a big fan of his run in NXT. And not only that, I was such a big fan of his theme song when he was in WWE. So I was at the very least excited to hear that again. And when he was partnering up with Zelina, his real life wife, I was thinking, okay, we could really get some cool work for them here. But then it kind of just mainly seemed like they were mainly using them in backstage segments, kind of basically being the replacement Karrion Kross and Scarlett, because it just, a lot of their backstage promos kind of just felt in the same vein of what they were trying to do with Karrion and Scarlett. And it's an absolute shame. And especially because Aleister Black, I don't think ever held a singles title in the main roster. Obviously, he held the NXT title, one of the most memorable NXT champions of all time. But I don't think he held a US title or the IC title once, and that is absolutely ridiculous. Hell, even in AEW, he didn't hold a singles title. I think it was just the trios titles that he won while he was there. And that's also a complete missed opportunity on both ends. So I really hope that the future is bright for Aleister / Malachi Black, or or Tyler. And I really hope all the best for Aleister Black and Zelina because they are so incredibly talented. Zelina as well, a former Women's United States champion. So I really hope some great work is developed for them in whatever promotion they decide to sign with because they are so freaking talented. And the fact that it seems that WWE did not have enough to do with them it's really fucking stupid, just plain and simple. And when it comes to Apollo Crews, I feel awful for Apollo Crews. This might be one of the least shocking out of the members of the departures. And while that sounds awful to say, ethically it sounds freaking awful. But at the same time, Apollo Crews had not been properly used on main roster television in quite some time. He had been doing some stuff in NXT, I believe, over the past year, but I don't remember them really having any proper story work with him after his Intercontinental title reign following WrestleMania 37 when he beat Big E. And I can't remember much that they did for him after that. I don't think there was much built up for him after that. And at the very least, he was in the company for 10 plus years, and his work in NXT was great when he first signed to the main roster. Got some really cool mid-card title matches. I remembered some TV matches he had with the likes of The Miz, and that were really good. And even in the pandemic era, he had that 30-minute match with also one of the departed talents today, Aleister Black. And I really hope that this isn't the end of Apollo Crews' in-ring career. I don't imagine it will be. And maybe they would want to bring him back because I know they're mainly wanting to consider these departures. Maybe their contracts ran out. Maybe to kind of leave the door open for them to come back. And if they wanted to maybe make Apollo Crews a trainer, I would imagine he would do a fantastic job with that. Maybe later on down the road because I think he's still got plenty to do in the ring. And it's just a damn shame that with him being in the company for more than a decade, that he wasn't utilized as much as he could be. Even though he was a former United States and IC champion, there still could have been a lot more work with him. And when it comes to Kairi Sane, I am especially shocked in a storyline sense because it still seemed like they were building up a feud with her and Asuka. Because Asuka kept belittling Kairi Sane and always yelling Kairi, and it was very memorable, and a lot of people were quoting that throughout the shows, and it's really fucking stupid. It is so disrespectful to Kairi Sane that you just have her get belittled on television, make her look like a fool. And this past week, the Raw after WrestleMania, she was competing on Raw this week, teaming with Asuka against Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, aka Rio, and Kairi cost them the match, and that's Kairi Sane's last moment on WWE television, is her looking like a fool, and not us even getting the payoff with her and Asuka. What the actual fuck? Like, what are we doing? And especially with so many of these talents, in particular, Aleister Black, Kairi Sane, and certain members of the Wyatt Sicks, Bo Dallas, Eric Rowan, Nikki Cross, Dexter Lumis, that these were talents that were released not too long prior. I believe they were a part of the list of released talent during the pandemic. And they brought them back once it was public that Vince was gone and Triple H was taking more of the creative helms around 2022 to 2023. And the fact that within less than 2 years, or even a year in Aleister Black's case, that it's immediately decided, yeah, sorry, it just seems like we got nothing for you. It's just absolutely ludicrous. It is absolutely insane. And it's especially irritating in Kairi Sane's case because there was literally a ongoing storyline days ago, not weeks, days ago. This most recent episode of Raw, and then gone. And I'm saying this like it's the first time that it's happened. It hasn't. It hasn't. And especially back in years like in the early 2010s when SmackDowns were being taped, we would get the announcement before SmackDown aired of a released talent and then see that released talent wrestle on SmackDown. It's such a crazy world. The world of WWE / professional wrestling. It is absolutely crazy. But Kairi Sane's is especially very heartbreaking since she already got let go and brought back and has to deal with this all over again. She does not deserve that. She is one of the most talented. She's one of the most talented male or female wrestlers in the entire world, and honest to God, to this day, still has the best elbow drop in the business. So I know that things are going to be fine for a talent like Kairi. Any promotion in Japan is going to welcome her back or welcome her in with open arms, and I don't see her. And I don't see her signing to another American promotion. I don't see her going to AEW. I don't see her going to TNA even. I do see her going to either Stardom or another Joshi promotion. And there's maybe the potential that we could maybe see her have a collaboration with some AEW talent at a Forbidden Door event or at a certain event in Japan. That would be really cool. But I especially feel some awful pain for Kairi Sane in this circumstance. And when it comes to the Motor City Machine Guns, out of these talents, Motor City Machine Guns are definitely the ones I'm most aware of. Not only for the fact that I am a Michigander, the hat clearly reveals it, but I've also been a huge fan of both Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin for more than a decade. Because I was watching them in TNA and they were kicking ass. They were one of my favorite tag teams in TNA. Probably next to the Hardys. They were my favorite tag team in TNA for quite a while. And their matches with tag teams like Beer Money are freaking phenomenal. And they had a brief stint in AEW. I was actually at their only AEW pay-per-view appearance at All Out 2022. They teamed, I believe, no, it was FTR and Wardlow against Motor City Machine Guns and I was almost going to say Don Callis family, but that was non-existent at that point. It was another heel team. I can't think of it. I was almost going to say FTR again. But anyway, I did see them appear at All Out 2022. And when they signed with WWE, and so quickly they took the tag team titles off of the Bloodline 2.0, aka Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, I was so ecstatic. It was so nostalgic to me because I felt like I was 14 years old again watching TNA. And I was so happy to see them in a WWE ring, and especially them get the tag team titles so quickly. And I was kind of really hopeful that we could see some great stuff, and them immediately getting started in a feud with DIY was wonderful. And the orchestration of that sadly didn't go the way exactly that we wanted, but Motor City Machine Guns were a part of two of the best ladder matches of the entire decade. And especially for the best ladder matches of last year, with the TLC match on SmackDown and the TLC at SummerSlam. In particular, that one on SmackDown with the Street Profits and DIY is freaking phenomenal and one of the best WWE matches of the entire 2020s. And like I mentioned with Kairi Sane, that there was a storyline ongoing, it was kind of seeming like that way with Motor City Machine Guns too. Because I think I was reading reports that it was looking like that Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae were wanting to develop a faction along with the Motor City Machine Guns, because both Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin were a part of the backstage segments where Johnny Gargano was just lying around depressed and Alex Shelley was trying to boost him back up, but Chris Sabin was like, hey, we need to focus more on us and you're focusing too much on Johnny Gargano. And I thought that would have led to a really cool heel faction. And now just not going to happen, I fucking guess, which it's so bothersome to me. It is so annoying to me. And it's also more bothersome that, okay, you're letting the Motor City Machine Guns go, just axing this whole faction storyline potentially for Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. If you're going to do that shit, you might as well just let... My phone moved around in my pocket. You might as well let Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae go. Because what else are you going to have for them besides them continuing to job out every single week? Continue jobbing out Johnny freaking Wrestling, one of my favorite professional wrestlers in modern professional wrestling, and Johnny Takeover. Johnny Takeover is now basically a jobber. And this would have made more sense in Vince McMahon booking standards, but now and it could not even be on Triple H's standards anymore. It could not even be on Triple H's terms anymore. It could be this whole TKO thing. Ugh, this is such a mess. It is such a mess. And speaking of mess, it's also a mess with what they did to Santos Escobar, because they did release Santos Escobar last year, and they quickly re-signed him. And I believe they especially re-signed Santos Escobar because they didn't want him to go to AEW. And they signed him. He didn't appear for months. He didn't appear in an event for AAA. And unfortunately, I did see a post where he did get injured. And so now I guess mid-injury, they're just letting him go. That's very unethical, but poor Santos. Literally just get let go, get re-signed, not do I don't think made a single reappearance on the main roster since his previous release, if I'm not mistaken. And I guess that's never going to happen now. Absolutely ridiculous. His work in NXT especially is the most fantastic work you'll see from his WWE career. There was some really good TV matches he had on SmackDown against Ricochet as well. And so it's such a bummer. And Zoey Stark's case is very similar to what I mentioned with Santos Escobar, because if you do not remember, last year Zoey Stark suffered a very awful looking knee injury on Raw. When I saw that moment, I immediately gasped out loud, and I was so concerned for Zoey Stark. And it was such a shame as well, because Zoey is such an incredible talent in the ring and wasn't properly used well at that time. And there were great moments that they used for her in the main roster. They brought her into the main roster from NXT by having her be paired with Trish Stratus. And she attacked Trish Stratus as soon as their work was done. So all was up in the air for her. And she's so freaking gifted in the ring. And before she could even make her in-ring comeback to the WWE, they let her go. That is just ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm pretty sure I was seeing some other reports that she was starting to get cleared to come back, which just makes it even more heartbreaking. If she was like just getting ready to step back into the ring, and then they're like, oh, well, I guess you can now step back in the ring in an independent wrestling promotion because your services here are no longer required. Best of luck in your future endeavors, blah, 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 blah. My anger might be getting too much, but it's awful to see some talents that you really love and respect to be treated in this certain way. And lastly, definitely maybe the most heartbreaking out of this, when you especially think about the context of everything, is the fact that they released every single member of the Wyatt Sicks. And I think Nikki Cross was the first announcement. She made a post on X thanking her fans and thanking WWE. And when we saw that, I'm like, are they just going to not so they just have one less member of the faction now? Or maybe they're going to have Alexa Bliss be the replacement, or they're just going to release everybody. And unfortunately, it was the latter. And it's especially heartbreaking in Bo Dallas's case. Especially if you watch the documentary that WWE made about Bray Wyatt. I believe it is still on Peacock, if I'm not mistaken. But hearing Bo Dallas talk about his brother, it makes me emotional every single time I watch it. And you could clearly tell that he was really wanting to build up the storyline to not only tribute his brother, but to also be able to really finish and craft the storyline that he had been wanting to work on with his brother in the lead up with this Uncle Howdy stuff when Bray was still here. And especially with the fact that Bray also had to deal with getting released and having to come back. And before a lot of even more incredible moments could have been made throughout his career post-return, he passed away. And I'm sure Bo Dallas's goal was to just simply continue that. And they really didn't give them much enough of a proper opportunity. They got the tag team title reign, and that was fun. And I guess they just felt like, well, we got the tag team belt thing with them. So now what? And they didn't seem like they wanted to do anything with them. And so it just seems like regardless of who is leading everything creative-wise, whether it be Vince McMahon or TKO or whatever, anything Bray Wyatt related just gets screwed over. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And Rowan being the last surviving member of the original Wyatt family it's just so painful to really think about it in that way. And just the fact that this is the second time that he's had to deal with this. So it's, for a lot of these people, it's not their first time having to deal with this in WWE at the very least. And it's just awful. And I don't know if Joe Gacy was released before they brought the Wyatt Sicks stable in. Maybe he was still signed in with NXT. I don't know for sure, but he is insanely talented. And a lot of the risky bumps that he takes is absolutely asinine. And especially for his stature, he can do some absolutely amazing moves that you would not expect out of someone like Joe Gacy. And a lot of people were comparing him to like a modern day Mick Foley. And if he was properly booked that way, he could have easily been that kind of personality for WWE. And so it is just an absolute shame with every single one of these releases. And I just really hope that every single one of these released talents get to be the happiest that they can possibly be following this outcome. Whether that they continue in the world of professional wrestling or not. Some I could see, maybe they don't want to do anything related to pro wrestling after that. And because especially after being let go from a company like WWE on multiple occasions, it could really simmer a lot of that desire. And not only that, or even just also coming with the circumstances of what's going on in a certain period of life, whether a family has begun for that certain wrestler or not. And it's a lot of factors into it. But I would love to see all of these talents have some incredible careers, whether it be in TNA, AEW, or just simply in the independent wrestling circuit. And I think with these announcements of departures from WWE, it's as important to say now more than ever to support independent wrestling. All of these talents are now could be wrestling either in your hometown 15 minutes from you or even an hour or two away. Go support independent wrestling, whether it's independent wrestlers who haven't even stepped foot into a company like WWE yet, or if it's talents who have just recently been let go from a company like WWE, and everything in between. Support independent wrestling, regardless of, and buy your favorite independent wrestlers merchandise, not just WWE shop, because when it comes to independent wrestlers merch, that the money on that field is a lot more dependent for those talents. So support independent wrestling, support your favorite professional wrestlers, whether they remain in your favorite professional wrestling company or not. And also to keep things as respectful as possible when it comes to things online. Please do not continue to spread any false release information like I mentioned earlier about people posting Chelsea Green also being let go when she has not been let go. Chelsea Green is still in WWE. And I was also going to mention, because Zelina Vega did mention um, on her live stream that she was not happy with the fact that Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful announced the departure from WWE before that she could make the announcement herself. I think some people were maybe wanting to confuse that with, oh, Sean Ross Sapp announced that before some talent even found out. No, Zelina did know what happened before Sean Ross Sapp made the announcement. She was just upset that she didn't get the opportunity to really send that message out herself, because I think certain talents like Nikki Cross were able to get the message out before companies like Fightful and Wrestling Observer newsletter were starting to get that information. So I could only imagine in that case, yeah, if I was in Zelina's shoes, I would much rather be able to announce the departure myself than having to see a bunch of reports about it on Facebook or X or Instagram before I could even say something about it myself. But that's my take on all these departed talents from WWE. I am obviously shocked with a lot of them, devastated with every single one. Even for talents I'm not as aware of, professional wrestlers losing their jobs is awful. It fucking sucks. And in like what a lot of people have been saying over the years, it is a part of the business, but hopefully it continues to let other realms of the business be just as welcoming to these talents, if not more. Please make sure to give your opinions on these releases in the comments down below. And for some of the talents that I'm not as aware of that I mentioned earlier, if you're a lot more aware of their careers as well, leave a comment on this video and maybe some links to some of their better matches in the independents, so we can really have more to look forward to for those talents and see what we could really see from them in further independent wrestling shows. But thank you so much for listening. I'm Duke from Duke It Out. Support professional wrestling and professional wrestlers.